I'm very happy to be here and extremely grateful for all the great presentations that preceded mine, because I'm full of ideas and full of links to explore thanks to you. So really, thank you very much. And if you ever come to Italy, my fridge is full of chocolate. But I also brought some chocolate that you can find at the yes, there. Okay, so I work at SPARC Europe since February 2021, and I joined SPARC Europe immediately after the pandemic. And I'm not a librarian, I'm a project manager. My profile is more the one of an instructional designer. And I started being very engaged and enthusiastic, not passionate, but enthusiastic about open education in the middle of the last decade. Out of the blue somehow, because in the university I belong to, which is Politecnico di Milano in Italy, we started designing MOOCs, and that's where we looked into open education for the first time. And it was a mind opener for me. So that's where I started. But working with librarians is something that came into my life only recently, and I feel privileged about it since it happened, because I'm learning a lot from them, and I really think that the skills of librarians, and it's easier with you in this room, but it's always something that I tell my colleagues first, the skills of librarians are key to change something in the open education community that is not working well yet. So let's start with SPARC Europe's European Network of Open Education Librarians. The acronym is ENOEL. Some of you might have heard about it. This is a picture of the regions that we cover. And yes, Russia is in it. And yes, Ukraine is in it. And we have members who are talking to each other in our meetings. So yeah, I'm very happy to say that, because it happens to us sometimes, and it's because of librarians, that the purpose crosses every boundaries, including those that we are facing lately. So those are the words of the librarians in the network, and being members of this community that is an international community, we are something more than 100 members, lately 115 or something. Some of them are more active, as you can easily imagine. Some others are just participating to some of the meetings, keeping up to date with the resources that we share. But they come and go according to the time they can put in open education, on top of all the duties that you know more than I do, that are on your desk daily. So I'm really grateful for the time they take to join us. And as you can see from the benefits they experience, it's something that I think you experience on a daily basis working with your colleagues, because it's part of your attitude as a community. So I'm the one benefiting from this mainly. What we do together is also try our best to collaborate against some of the challenges that are honestly more related to the daily basis work that librarians do, and that prevents them to be more active in the community sometimes. Just take into account the fact that Europe is very diverse in relation to openness and in relation to open education. So we have countries and members from countries who have, I would call it, the privilege to spend working hours on open education, while in other contexts it's always up to them and to their free time to contribute and to take some responsibility in what we propose. So setting priorities, making choices, lack of time, resources, and people and funding is always something that we have to take into account whenever we start making a proposal or organizing an activity. we are working on implementing the UNESCO OER recommendation at our best. Are you familiar with the UNESCO OER recommendation? Raise your hand if you are, please. Just give me. Okay, so you will find the main key actions in my slides if you want to look at them later. And also, please, I didn't tell you that, but please feel free to stand up and walk around if you need to stretch your legs or drink something, please. Just be free. You can listen to my voice in the background. It's fine. So what we try to do is to focus on specific action areas of the UNESCO OER recommendation in everything that we do. It's also part of our strategic plan and our identity. You can find the UNESCO OER recommendation everywhere in our work. And our effort is to also advocate around it, not only to raise awareness about its main areas. It's a nice and interesting document that is strongly linked to everything that I heard today about open access and open science and open data. So if you take a moment in your future weeks to read this document, it's very short and very well written, I would say, interesting lecture. So what we did with our, why am I here today? What we did lately with our members was to ask them to fast travel forward in time. And please know that I, by mistake, left this slide in the presentation that I sent the organizers, and this one cannot be shared, just this slide. So please remove it, because this photo is not open, but I loved it and I wanted to share it with you. Because that's somehow the approach we adopted, right? I mean, we don't have only new tools and digital resources. We also have a lot of tools that come from the past, from our experiences in every different field, and that are helpful on a daily basis. Even if we are not conscious about them, we are continuously using them. And this is part of the open approach to knowledge. I mean, we are not inventing any wheel. We are just reusing, adapting, and hopefully adding something here and there. So that's what we asked our ENOEL members, and this is the shareable image. So you might remember that the DeLorean is in one of the cars. I mean, we don't have a lot of too young people in this room, right? So Back to the Future should be in your cultural experiences. And this is something that I can share. So we asked them to time travel fast forward in the future in 2026, which is not very far, but we wanted them to picture a practical impact that we can make in open education as a network. And we started brainstorming with members because we wanted to write our new strategic plan for open education with the librarians that are hopefully helping the community to implement it. And that's what we did. They were all involved in bringing ideas to the table. We discussed with them, and we continued through brainstorming activities to try to answer these questions. What have we achieved by 2026? As if we were already in the future. And how has the network helped you? Which is very practical again. It's not supposed to be big, okay? It can be big, better. But if it's not, it's a small steps tactic that brings all of us together in 2026 with something new realized. So we asked them also to fly high, because with the big purposes, then you take small steps, but the aim is to have something that is meaningful in the future, in the near future, around open education. And that's what they did. This is just a screen capture of the last steps of the discussion that they made very fruitfully together. Everyone was welcome with their own ideas, and you might see here. One of the tools that were mentioned before, because looking the enemies in the eyes is the best way to be critical and to build the skills that are needed to use the tools that are no more than tools with a critical approach. And also being very mindful about all the biases that they bring together with them, the fact that they are not artificial intelligence yet, they are just statistic tools in our hands, and they can help us, but not be our alter ego in any way possible. And also, they need us all as human beings first to insert questions that are relevant and that support them in learning through our questions, that biased answers are not going to receive any positive feedback from us. So that's something that we can start doing, and that's why librarians are interested in this too. So we came up with this new strategic plan, which is entitled Librarians as Agents of Change. That's it. I don't think that I need to add anything else, okay? We have 5 main goals, and you can see them here. The first one is support open education policy development and encourage investment in open education. And you can feel that the UNESCO OER recommendation is behind the scenes all the time. Raise awareness of the value of open education, open educational resources, and open educational practices, and stimulate actions. And also advocate for the recognition and reward of open education. It often happens that education, the education side, it's like the third mission of universities around Europe, is something at the bottom of the line of the interests, okay? Because at least in open access, you can count on the fact that all faculty members and researchers have to publish to progress in their career. When you talk about teaching, either they are passionate about it or enthusiastic about it or even at least interested in doing a good enough job. Otherwise, open education is not even something they are willing to discuss, okay? So raising awareness and advocating for it is part of the job. And then we want to build capacity and upskill librarians to become even more effective in supporting open education. And even more means that you are already key in advancing open education on a daily basis, I would say. And then, last but not least, facilitate the EI reach open education practices across all corners of Europe. And this is part of the, I mean, there are 5 goals, but they are very linked to each other. And everything that we do on a practical basis is a mixed effort toward all of them. Let's see, since every project comes with a plan, that's what we drafted with our members, and it's a very long document with a lot of activities and sub-goals that we stated. And members of the ENOEL are adding their names from time to time and continuously, I have to say, which is something that I'm really happy about, to contribute to put their time and effort and expertise into each and every activity. The thing is that now, after 2 years together, they not only see the purpose in sharing what they already know and their approach and their skills, but they know that if they work with other librarians across Europe, this is an opportunity to learn with them and to build something that is meaningful. And that's why they are willing to join and to work on these activities, even if they have no time. most of the time they have no time. So let's see something that we did together, just a slideshow, but you will have links and then also QR codes to all the resources. All our resources are shared with the CC BY license. We advocate for all the licenses because we are also conscious about the boundaries that librarians have at the local level, at the institutional level. And if there is a policy or if there is an approach that we encourage is to also with with the licenses to start small and take a step-by-step approach. But we don't have limitations, so why should we share something with a restrictive license if we are willing for everyone to learn through our resources and to reuse them as far as possible? We are not there to put another wall in front of them. So we interviewed some policymakers in different European institutions and shared this let's say, short report on it. And this is a way to contribute to look into specific different experiences that show what happens when there is a national policy about open education, national investment on open education, if there is nothing at all, what happens if you have a champion in your institution, in the faculty members, what if your champions are just, and I'm saying just because I'm also part of the staff, administrative staff, you know, technical and administrative staff, so powers come into place. So we look forward to have champions in the most powerful sitting tables in order to be invited, and librarians should be invited to sit at policy-making tables. So that's where we looked at to see what happens around Europe and if there is something that can be learned and reused elsewhere. We are also raising awareness, as I said, about the values of open education, open educational resources and practices. And we are organizing a series of webinars. Some of you told me that you've been there. And of course, the recordings are shared openly, but it's a YouTube channel. So even if you put a CC BY license, but if you want to reach out to me, I will be very happy to share with you the original recording. So come up to me and tell me that you want to reuse this recording. And all the slides and the work plan, and the work plan is key for the workshops, are shared in Zenodo, again CC BY, and having a work plan means that you not only have the resources that you can reuse, you can embed part of the recordings in your presentation or in your lessons whenever you want, but if you want to adapt it to your local needs, and you are welcome to do that, you have the work plan that takes you step by step through every slide, and you can change them with yours, translate them in your own local language, change the names of the presenters, very small steps again, and also refer to local resources to give them visibility, to be recognized for the work that people do in your local institution. So take a look if you want to and join the next events. And it's always librarians facilitating. Sometimes it's their first international workshop experience. And it's wonderful to give them the floor, because what happens in return is that when they do something with us, within this context, then out of the blue, their institution knows that they are doing something, and they might be invited. That's what happened to some of the librarians that were invited to sit at decision-making tables. That's what should happen everywhere. We are not there yet. We are continuously working toward that. We also invite our librarians to share under the spotlight their experience, and it's very important for them to have a place where to tell their story, because they might be taking their first steps in open education. Why not? Many people are at the same stage, right? So there's nothing wrong in sharing openly that, well, I didn't hear about licenses till 3 years ago. Now that's what I'm doing with them. In my library, that's the approach that we took, and that's the progress that we made. Of course, it's wonderful to have people who are leading and paving the way for others, okay? But it's not only about having champions at the highest level. It's more about accompany with our hands all together those who are taking their first steps. And we want them to feel embraced in their path, and we want them to be recognized as good enough first, and then getting better with the support of the others. So that's what happened in the past, and that's what is going to happen again. Another thing that we are doing is to work on building capacity to support librarians with practical tools. This resource was downloaded more than 2,000 times. 2,000 times so far. And during this year, actually next month, we are going to have an hackathon activity. You didn't know that yet, but I'm working behind the scenes to organize it, because we have this resource with the benefits of open education for students, teachers, institutions, and citizens. Who's missing? Librarians. Okay, and this was done by librarians and localized in 18 languages by librarians. Okay, so we are going toward the 4th version, including the benefits for librarians. It's a very, very simple tool, CC BY, of course. The graphic elements are on purpose very simple, because the idea is that everyone should take these tools and adapt them to their local image. The institutional font, the colors, the logos, and instructions are provided to help them getting more familiar with how to change the tools, okay, and how to adapt them to the local needs. So you have them already in different languages. I know that for this audience, I mean, you are all English speakers, right? And I'm using English as a second language, and you can hear my bad English. So imagine people who comes from the Balkan area, or for example, the Ukrainian community used this tool to advocate for open education in the last 2 years since the war started. And what they did through these resources was to reach out to the other libraries, advocate for open educational resources during the wartime, and convince the minister to take action around this. Something that I'm dreaming about in Italy. Nothing like this is happening, okay? And I'm happy that through this very critical situation they are in, to say the least, they took advantage of something that is available and used it as an opportunity not only to work on open education, but also to speak to each other, to organize webinars, to ask the European and international community to support them. So you see. And we have also the Russian version, because our Russian librarians contributed to this and wanted to be there with their own version. So you see, things in the Balkan areas are happening around this resource. It's a very simple resource, as I said. All the benefits are based on evidence-based. Librarians, I mean, so they collected references that are meaningful, and they are going to update it with new reference too. Those are few examples of the slides that you can find in the toolkit if you download the different languages. And you also see that there are instructions here and there, but there are easily deletable slides at the beginning that provide all the details to also learn how to attribute properly. And we are willing to reach out to more languages than we had so far. So if you happen to know a second language, or if you are a native speaker of a country that is not there yet, I would love to get in touch with you. What else we are doing? In order to facilitate open practices that are DEI rich, something that we continue to do, and we started small somehow again, I mean small with European, okay? Because at the beginning we facilitated open education cafes discussion around each area of action of the UNESCO OER recommendation, just with open education champions at the European level, okay? Then we took a step further with the 4th and 5th open education cafes, inviting people from outside Europe, of course. I mean, it's open education. 1 minute, thank you. This is the key message that I needed. But again, we already started inviting someone that belongs to Cape Town University, actually, because they are doing a project around open textbooks where they create open textbooks thanks to funding coming from, look at this, Commonwealth of Learning Canada. And they worked together at the beginning, but then they transformed the Open Textbook project into something that is now only based on the resources and skilled people in Cape Town. And we invited Glenda Cox and Bianca Mazuku, who are working on the project there, to come and tell us, how did you work on this? How did you manage the funding? How did you started? And they came and they shared with us. And so that's how we are now merging two different series, because it was called Pass the Open Education Expert Baton, okay? We know something, we share it with you, you are the next, you are the one that leads us forward in the next future. And now we are merging the two, because we are going to have the new episode with people that now will always come from everywhere. Skills are there, and I'm very happy about this evolution, because you know, when something like this happens, that's when you are seeing that not only the progress is outside and you are advocating, but it's also inside somehow, because we also need to learn how to change. The name of the network is still European Network of Open Education Librarians, okay? And it will stay the same, because that's where the people are geographically located. But open education crosses every boundaries, so it's meaningless to rely only on ourselves. Also because great experiences and great publications come from marginalized communities that are worth looking into, and it's the best way possible to understand how to ask properly questions, for example, when we interact with the so-called generative AI. And yes, I think that that's it. That's the way that we are progressing, and this is our way to progress, because librarians are sharing with us their needs and are sharing with us their interest. So it's all about them, I would say. And I'm grateful for being, and you're all welcome. It's free. It comes with no cost. There is no compelling activity. If you have time, if you have interest, you can also look at our resources and reuse them. If you are willing to be more active, you're welcome to do so. That's it.